Welcome to this week's OK at Work with myself, Sarah Sawyer, and my colleague, Russell Berger from the Offit Kurman Labor and Employment Group. And this is our first OK at Work for 2022 and the 22nd month of the COVID-19 pandemic. So what else should we talk about but that, right? So still, we've had a lot of developments over the holiday here with guidance from the CDC. I know I'm getting a lot of questions as people are returning to work from the holiday, starting to get calls from clients about what to do and what the new guidance is and what it means for their business. What's some advice you've been giving clients, Russell?
Yeah, I mean, we take a few weeks off from recording for the holidays, and the CDC issues all kinds of new guidance, and we've got a new variant that is causing all sorts of chaos. So, really, so the starting point is really with the CDC guidance, and in a nutshell, what the CDC has said is the guidance for exposure and getting sick and actually having COVID-19 it's a shortened isolation period followed by masking, so people can return to work sooner, but they'll still need to be out of work for at least 5 days. Um, and in addition, the close contact quarantining guidance has changed some, with it being a little bit more manageable for those employees that have received a booster as opposed or have been vaccinated within the last 6 months if it's Moderna or Pfizer, and within the last 2 months if it's Johnson and Johnson. So one of my big takeaways from everything the CDC has done is, well, they haven't redefined what it means to be fully vaccinated. In practice, they've kind of gotten close to that, and because now we're seeing different guidance for people who have received a booster or who have been more recently vaccinated, as opposed to people that have been vaccinated more than 6 months or more than 2 months ago, depending on what vaccine they received. So, from an employment standpoint, it really raises the question as to whether, if you've gone the route of mandating a vaccine in your workplace, should you consider, and I think you should at least have the discussion and the thought process around mandating boosters.
Yeah, I've definitely seen an increase in questions around boosters, especially in industries or companies where in-person work is really important, and not having people out for longer periods of time, where there's a lot of hourly workers and things like that. So I've actually seen an increase in people mandating the vaccine who haven't done so already, and then adding the booster in there as part of their definition of fully vaccinated, to help combat that. Also getting a lot of questions from in-person work around in places with in-person work workers where more petitions going back up, in social distancing and closing the lunchroom, and a lot of jurisdictions now have mask mandates again. So, and even if there's not a mask mandate, it's probably pretty highly recommended at this point to have your employees wearing masks, just to try to avoid how quickly this virus can spread through the workplace and have people out.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing, understanding that COVID is something that's going to mutate, and we've seen different variants with different characteristics. I think what we're seeing from the CDC, and I think therefore what employers ought to be doing as well, is a reflection to, I think the ideal or the evidence that suggests that the Omicron variant is maybe not as problematic or severe with respect to the symptoms it causes, particularly for those that are recently vaccinated or boosted. And so, kind of given that, it makes sense. Okay, well, we are shortening quarantine, and we are being, a little more, from a public health standpoint, from the CDC perspective, they're being a little more aggressive with some of these policies. But it kind of makes sense with a highly contagious but maybe not quite as severe variant, at least among the vaccinated population.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing remains, though, is just even with these shortened isolation periods, I know that right now a lot of employers are worried about, all right, it's January 3rd when we're recording this, and everyone was with their family and everyone was taking certain risks over this time period, and it's very highly contagious, and they are shorter periods, but are a bunch of people going to go out at once, and what to do with that? And I do think the shortening has obviously helped with that. But it's definitely something that's becoming a little bit more of an issue. And the guidance is a little bit confusing in that sense, I think, to a lot of employers as they're coming back from the holiday and trying to figure out what to do with people, and have employees asking questions, symptomatic versus, not having any symptoms, and testing positive, and what the difference is. And if someone gets to that 5-day mark and they're vaccinated and they're boosted, but they're still symptomatic, then they're still supposed to be staying home until they feel better. So
right. Well, in the language is symptoms are resolving. So it doesn't say resolved as in, you're all better. It's resolving and you don't have a fever. So what does it mean for symptoms to be resolving? I mean, like that leaves a lot of ambiguity. And it's just something that employers are going to have to work through. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't add that like this guidance could change in another couple of days. By the time we publish this, it could be a little bit different. So, we just have to, employers should really stay up to date on the CDC guidance and stay flexible with it.
Yeah, and to the extent they can help their employees with resources around finding testing and things like that, I think that's also a good move as well. Just to ease, just from a logistics practical standpoint, just really trying to be as helpful as they can, because it's a tough time for everyone. Again, coming back from the holidays and trying to figure out what to do, and trying to, we've talked a lot about on this show, a lot about retention, and I know a lot of employers have big goals for 2022 and are looking to retain employees. And so, there's just kind of some practical things to be thinking about there, and any support that employers can reasonably lend to employees, I think is probably a good idea.
Yeah. Well, and I just add too that if you're a larger employer and you can buy some rapid tests in bulk, you're going to use them. It's the same thing like when we were nervous about buying too many masks because, this will be over. We won't need to use all these masks. It's the same thing with tests. I think testing is going to be a key part of keeping people in the workplace, particularly if the guidance changes to something that involves testing for return to work. So if you can, I think that's a prudent thing for employers to be doing.
Good advice, and we'll see you next time, Russell, and we'll keep on keeping on with this COVID stuff. I'm sure we'll be getting updates.
Thanks, Sarah. Take care.